Okay, this is Walter, and I'm going to give you a couple ideas on how you can use the crusher bar. Um, I don't bench press. I haven't in a number of years because I blew out my sternoclavicular joint on my right side from a motorcycle accident racing around in the desert. Um, so I found it kind of aggravates that. But I'm going to demonstrate a one-arm bench press with a barbell. So it's a total of 85 pounds. And I'm just going to see how this goes. And notice kind of how my body reacts to it. Not my strongest lift. Yeah. Notice a little bit of stress in my hip on the right side a little bit because the weight is kind of trying to pull me this way. So I got to anchor this foot, and I'm just not used to it because I don't ever do this. So it kind of gives you an example. Now the whole idea of using one arm and a dumbbell press is it's going to try to roll you off the bench and force you to use more of your anti-rotator muscles and really try to lock your body in more. Um, and develop a different type of strength than just doing a bilateral bench press. So let's take a look at doing a bench press with the crusher. This is the first prototype I made. You can kind of readily see that um, I just took some strap and I bent it, welded around this piece of pipe, and then I put some little cross braces in here just to kind of strengthen it more. I welded this tube in there. This is fixed to one end, so it's not adjustable. Now this is the first one I made. I think I made it about a year and a half, 2 years ago. I just put a little fixed collar on the other end. I didn't even make it that long because I was just experimenting with it, and I figured I wouldn't be able to put that much weight on it anyways. I mean, you could put like 3 or 4 45-pound plates on here, so you can get like 180 pounds on this with a collar. But I don't know anybody in the world that would be able to lift that kind of weight with this, with leverage working against you. So this was my first prototype. The reason why I made it the grip so big around is I want it to mimic more of like using a tool, because most tools have a thicker handle on it, and also it's similar to maybe grabbing someone's wrist. So in a lot of sports, they might be wrestling around or, you know, kind of banging into one another. So I figured it mimics that to a degree, and it also forces you, because of the thicker grip, and you got to grab hard, you got to really crush this to lift it. It kind of forces your body to incorporate more musculature, and it fires up your nervous system even more so than using just a little thin bar. Most things you lift and do in life are not connected to a thin little bar, so I wanted something that mimicked more of the real life scenarios. So you saw how the one-arm bench press went with 85 pounds. It's not my lift. Some guys could probably quite easily surpass that lift or do a lot, lift a lot more weight right from the beginning. But looking at that, in comparison to the crusher that I sent to Coach Dan John, just the handle itself on that weighs about 27, 28 pounds. And the bar itself is, I think it's around, I can't remember, 16 or 18 pounds or something. So the handle being slid off to one end is going to kind of counteract a little bit of the weight on the other end. But regardless, a person isn't going to be able to use a ton of weight. So I'm just going to put a little weight on here and show you what it looks like. For 5, 20 pounds, I don't have any real collars. Keep them the Dan John. Anyway, so I'm going to just put that little plastic clamp thing on there, and hopefully it'll hold it well enough. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to lay this out at an angle and then kind of crawl on there at the end, because this won't have any weight on it. And I got to lever this bar over. Okay, watch it. I'll try setting it up this end on a crate.
No go. Okay, I'm going to give this another go. Just a 10-pound plate, and it's laying on the ground. I can feel that a lot more in my body fighting and using all its anti-rotators through my column and in my hips and my legs and even my shoulders, trying to control that weight out there. It has more the feel of like when you're wrestling somebody, you know, you got to push and pull at the same time, because even though this arm is pushing, this arm has to kind of pull even though you're lifting at the same time. A lot of work in the real world moving things like a piece of furniture. You know, you pick up a real heavy couch with a hide bed in it, and you're going around a corner up a set of stairs, and you got a friend on the other end, and as he's going up, the weight's transferring more to you. You're trying to get around a corner, and the weight's shifting, and you're finding you have to, like, the couch wants to tip this way, you're trying to lift it this way and hold it up, and even though you're still pulling down, there's still weight you got to kind of lift, and it creates that kind of internal struggle going on in your body, way more than using a barbell and way more than using a dumbbell or even a kettlebell, for example in this case, in doing a press. And this type of torquing, internal torquing into your body using the crusher is across the board. Any exercise you do with it, any kind of conventional exercise you might do, like a bench press, an overhead press, a bent row, a curl, it's going to create that type of internal torquing and anti-rotation and resistance and application of force, you know, pulling and pushing and crushing all at the same time. And that's kind of part of the reason why I call the bar the crusher. This was my first prototype, as I said. I'm going to demonstrate something with the second prototype I made, and let's take a look at that. Okay, this is the second prototype of the crusher that I made, and if you notice, the welds are pretty rough. I haven't cleaned it up. It's still even got some slag on it. I never grinded it down and cleaned it up or anything. I played around with it a little bit. Part of the problem with this is when I was trying to get tubing for this from the manufacturers, and I contacted I don't know how many metal supply shops, it was difficult. I even looked at getting a bending machine, which is pretty pricey, to bend the radius that I needed. And the problem is they all send bending dies that are only a 6-inch, what's called a 6-inch centerline radius. So in effect, what you're talking about is like if I put a compass here and drew a circle around that center point, from that point here to the center line of this tubing, this is 2-inch tubing, so it would be 1 inch into here, and from that 1 inch added to there, the centerline radius, the smallest dies they had, or bending radius, was actually 6 inches. So what that means is from this center point to the center of this tube would be 6 inches, and thus as I swung that around, it would be 6 inches here. So this would be 12 inches. This cross piece here would be 12 inches from the center of this bar, which is just too much. It's just too far from your body. It creates so much torque you probably wouldn't be able to put any kind of weight on it. So I knew that wouldn't work. This distance is really a little bit too much too. And in the third prototype, the crusher that I sent to Dan John, this is actually distance is a little bit less, and I think it works out way better. And the manufacturers wanted quite a bit of money for them to custom bend tubing for me, even on just a 4-inch centerline radius, which is still too much because then it's 8 inches. This here is like about 6 inches, the distance, and it's really too much. So anyway, so I play around with this one, and this is a fixed handle. The third prototype, as you saw in the other video for Dan John, just to give him an idea before it got there that day, what the bar looked like and kind of how to set it up. That handle is adjustable. You can move it, and you can swap it around and bring it in the other way. So if you haven't seen that video, I encourage you to take a look at it. One of the nice things about the handles being designed this way is, other than my first prototype, the straps you can't grab. This you can grab anywhere all the way around the handle on the crusher. And a nice thing about this is if you're doing overhead presses or you decided to do bench presses, is One of the things I learned from my RKC when I took that back in 2004 is they talked about getting a kettlebell to run crossways across your hand and touch on this spot here and put pressure on this spot of your palm, because it excites more of your nervous system and your triceps and helps you get more muscles into the lift. So the cool thing about with this is you can actually do that when you're bench pressing. It's hard to do it with a barbell because you kind of have to offset your hand and then you don't have a secure grip. But with this, I can grab in the corner up here and I can put that point right on the bar, and then I can grab here and I have a really secure grip. So I'm just going to demonstrate that and show you what that looks like.
I'm looking at some of the different grips I can use with this bar. Is I can grab it with the handles hanging down from the crusher. And this, I think with the other bar where the handle a little closer will be more stable. But this distance is so great that it makes us pretty unstable to lift this. In this configuration. And I wouldn't want to lose it either way, because then it's going to rip out of my hands and then I'd end up dropping the bar on myself. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend bench pressing like that so much. And I don't think I would try benching like this either. Just put your hand in too awkward a position. But with the handles hanging down from the crusher, if you use a staggered grip, then what happens is it does make it more secure, but it still creates enough of a disorderly setting that you're going to notice it more than a regular bench press with a regular bar. So that's a grip that a person can play around with. Like I was talking about, is being able to put that sweet spot of the palm into this cross brace and wrapping the fingers around the bar and being able to bench like this, because it puts the elbows in and the shoulders, so your upper arm is externally rotated more, and it's a very nice, comfortable position in which to bench press. It actually feels pretty good for the shoulders, even for me. And I never bench press, so I haven't in years. So that's just an idea of how you can use it. And like I said, you could do a staggered grip like this, even on the cross pieces that come directly out of the bar.
So that's a couple ways you could use the crusher and bench pressing if you wanted, though I think the best two ways to use it for that is to use it with the handle extended all the way out, as I demonstrated with my first prototype where the handles are fixed. It gives you a lot of that disorderly setting, and just you just have to experiment with it to believe it. And if you don't have this bar, you could do it with the barbell, though I like the parallel grips because it's more natural when you're gripping a lot of things. You know, most things don't have handles on them that we can pick up and lift in the real world. And the same when it comes to most sports. You know, your hands are all over the place. If you're wrestling or blocking or tackling or, you know, running, or you're carrying stuff, or whatever the case may be, or lifting things in different sports like strongmen's or competition or having games. All those sports are much more real world scenario type exercising and training and competition than using a barbell, unless you're competing in Olympic weightlifting or powerlifting. So this can open up a world of training for disorderly settings for someone who maybe doesn't work in a blue collar field, because a lot of blue collar fields, if it's hard work, depending on the variety that's involved and stuff, if it's too repetitive, it really can break your body down, because you just do it for so many years, you know, you get your own injuries from it. But it can toughen you up. But there is a better way. Just do basic lifts and then incorporate something like this, the crusher, and it's going to help you to develop a more rounded capability that will be able to help you transfer gym strength into the world outside the gym. And so I think the benefit of the crusher bar for bench pressing is, as I said, getting that sweet spot here. And I think it works really good for overhead presses too, grabbing the crusher in that manner and then using it with the handle way out on the end. One of the other things that we had just talked about was pressing from that sweet spot. So you can do the same thing, is take that part of your palm, put it right here in this middle, and grab this. And this is a really nice position to be pressing from overhead. It can help a person really activate their lat and get their lat into it, because their arms, their elbows in and closer to them. So it can help a person maybe who has shoulder issues or other difficulties in being able to do a stronger overhead press. Another nice thing about the crusher is it can really help a person be able to do back squats perhaps more readily. You've got a nice thicker bar, so it's kind of cushion your back a little bit. And if you have a little bit of mobility issues in your shoulders, or maybe you've got shorter arms and it's just hard for you to get your arms back up there on the bar, depending on your circumstances, work on mobility exercises to try to get more flexible and mobile and strengthen those areas. But also with this, you can flip it up and you can grab it like this in whatever position feels most comfortable to you to be able to do a back squat. So I can get it on my back like this, and now my arms are up here. I don't have to wedge my hands way back here. I can hold them here. It might be more comfortable. And the other thing is this bar will roll a little bit. So as you go into the squat, you might be rolling the bar like this, and then as you come up, you can roll it back up higher. I think for a lot of people, that can make their back squat maybe more comfortable and safer, so maybe they can handle more reps or heavier load a lot more readily than with just a regular barbell. And the other nice thing about the crusher, as I sent it to Dan John with the removable handle, is you can take the handle completely off, and then you have yourself a thick bar that you can train with. You can just take one of the collars, clamp a collar here, and then put your weight plates on either side and use it like a thick bar. So then you don't need a dedicated thick bar separately from the crusher. So it's kind of it's 3 bars in one, really. Let's take a look at the front squat. I apologize for all the squeaking as the bar rubs on the metal here. Well, the front squat's the same thing. A lot of people have a hard time rolling their hands all the way back. One of the tricks is just letting the bar go out onto your fingers, because it's really your upper chest and frontal deltoid area, anterior deltoid or front part of your shoulder, that's supporting the bar, so you can push your body into it. It's not resting completely in your hands like this. You want it like that. And a lot of people don't understand that at first. But this makes it pretty easy. What you can do is flip your bar around like this, and you can do your front squats in this position. So it's a lot easier for a lot of people. Again, you got a nice wide bar to create more, distribute the weight more on your body, so it might be more comfortable for a lot of people. And then as you're squatting down, doing your front squat, again, you can kind of push up into the handle and rotate the bar into your body more. The nice thing with it is you can kind of experiment with hand grips that might work best for you. This is another way. You can grab down here, or you can grab up here, and you might find you can get a really nice shelf here, because now the bar, the crook, I don't know if you can see it or not, but the crook of this bar, where it forms this little right angle here, is resting more in my deltoid and even on part of my bicep. So just makes for a real comfortable front squat, and that way you're not worried so much about the discomfort and your wrist cranking on you and hurting you. You can really focus on putting weight on the bar and making sure your form in the squat is better than worrying about, man, my wrists are killing me, I can't do front squats. This can open up that door for a lot of people. One of the other things in using the crusher is you can alter your grip in so many different ways. For example, when you're just doing a barbell curl, you can curl a thick bar style without the handle slid onto your bar, but you can also use the crusher and you can curl like this, which creates a different effect. You can stagger your grip and all sorts of configurations. The other reason why you might notice that I wanted this reduced in height, not only because it created so much leverage and torque on the body that you wouldn't be able to use hardly any weight at all, is the fact that when you flip it up, this is more apt to hit you in the chin or the mouth, whereas having the handles a little bit closer that's way less apt to happen. The other thing you can do is you can grab here on these cross pieces, and it kind of hits your forms a little bit, so as you curl you can really crush this thing almost like you're lifting a rock, which is a nice benefit too. Gives you sort of that feeling of lifting a rock. And if you alternate your hands, one on the top, one on the bottom, you get that feeling even more like a rock that's kind of unweighted. Because funny enough, even if you have the same amount of weight on both sides, it just feels different. It doesn't feel so bilateral. The other thing you can do is you can experiment with weighting one side of the bar more than the other, or with the adjustable handle, what you can do is flip it around so this handle is in the middle and this handle's out, and you can still put plates on both sides, but this side's going to feel more weighted because the weight's a little further in your body. And then you can play with various hand positions and doing curls or even presses and other exercises. So you're going to get exposed to a lot of disorderly settings. It's going to broaden your strength. People that focus on just the same lift all the time, they can go very deep into that field. Like powerlifters, that's how they get strong, and they compete, and they need to do that. That's what they need to focus on. And they use things like boards, chains, bands, and stuff like that to kind of create a little bit of variation in their lifting, so their strength, even though it's deep and narrow, can kind of broaden out. But using a bar like this can add several more layers to that, so even though your skill might be deep, you could broaden that skill out even more. So rather than being shaped like an I, you can be shaped more like a V, and maybe eventually even a broader base shaped like a U. So you're creating a wider spectrum of your ability to apply your strength to other things than just a competition. For someone who's specializing in a sport, that's what they need to focus on. But for other people that don't specialize in the sport or want more to become a more versatile, multifaceted person with the ability to adapt to more environmental situations and whatever they want to do, using a bar like this can help them greatly. Of course, any type of lift that you can do with the crusher, with the bar, with the handles centered or the handles offset a little bit, you can offset the handle all the way to the end. And I don't have another bar like that yet made. I need to make one for myself that's adjustable, because with this one, with it's fixed on the end, where you can do leverage type lifts with the weight to the side, I can't grasp this strap. It's not comfortable. You can hurt your fingers on it. So, plus being able to incrementally take your handle out to the end opens up your options a lot. So pretty much any conventional exercise you could do with a regular barbell and with the crusher with the handle in the middle. You can also do those same exercises with the handle out in increments all the way to the end. You can do curls like this. You can do staggered type curls, and you can do overhead presses like that. And it creates a real unique stressor into your body. As I was talking about before, like with the bench press, it causes your internal conflict in a way. Is your body is one piece, so is you're lifting something, especially something, an object, like wrestling someone. Sometimes you're using like an isometric strength, and you're trying to push, but you're trying to pull, and you're trying to control and twist and torque and do all these things at the same time. And that's what it's like lifting with the crusher, especially as you move the bar out or you start changing your grip around on it. It has that type of effect. It creates that blue collar type strength, that wrestler's kind of strength. One of the things I mentioned is you can use a regular barbell like that, so you can experiment with a barbell, grab it near the end, and then the other hand on the barbell, and start experimenting with some lifts like that, just to see what the effect is and whether you would enjoy that kind of training or experimenting with it. If you'd enjoy that kind of training, or if it might open up some doors for you to maybe develop more of that disorderly setting type strength. Someone who's just gym strong, maybe strong at the bench press and squats or power cleans, you get them in certain situations, in everyday life, and that strength can help a lot. For a beginner, that's what I'd say, is focus on those basic movements, human movements, and pick something that you enjoy doing and stick with them and build your strength up. But once you get to a certain point, it's good to start introducing other things, maybe a dedicated day that you just do some training like that, or maybe just at the end of your regular session, focusing on the basic, maybe toss something in like this, a side leverage lift where you have the weights, the handle out on the end of the crusher, and you have weight on the end, and then you're just picking it up and bracing yourself and holding it. One of these days I got to get this organized a little bit more, because I lift back here and I work and weld and create things like this. I got other projects I'm actually working on. I'm making myself an air rowing machine. I'm going to be doing a video on that. I'm doing a video on that I'm going to share with people. And I also got some other ideas for some cool lifting tools. But okay, this is what I call the side leverage lift, because it is a leverage lift and it's really cranking on your body, and it's to the side. I've got a 25-pound plate on the end of the bar. This is kind of lever it, maybe off your leg, push down on this, get tight. And then just kind of set the bar down. So in doing the side leverage lift, how I would approach it is I'd start off with a lightweight, 5, 10, 15 pounds, whatever feels comfortable, and I would hold it for seconds. I'd hold it maybe for 5 seconds, and if you can hold it for 5 seconds comfortably, then I'd add a little 5-pound plate or so and experiment with it. I'd only do like maybe 3 sets per side, maybe 3 sets of 5, and hold it for 5 seconds. When you get to a weight where you can't hold it for 5 seconds, that's as far as you go. And then I experiment with it until I can hold that weight. But you just want to get braced, make sure your lower back is proper, and hip hinge, push this down, breathe behind the shield. You can do the picks from the floor if you want, or you can do them off of a bench. It's a 25, a 10, and a 10, so you get 45 pounds here. This entire bar only weighs 18 pounds with this, so I don't have much weight on the other end to help counteract that. The actual crusher that I sent to Dan John weighs about 43 and a half pounds or so, 44 pounds, and the handle is like 27 pounds itself, so it'll have a little bit more weight to help you counteract this weight, but it's still going to be tough, and all you got to do is add another 5 or 10 or 15 pound plate to the other end, and you're going to feel it for certain. So I don't even know if I can really do this 45 pound plate. I'm just going to try to lever it up off the bench a little bit. You get really braced, you got to root everything really tight. Yeah. That's real heavy. 35 probably be a little better. I'm just playing around with it a little bit just to give you an idea. Now I can lift that, but I wouldn't work out with it. I wouldn't train with it. I would actually be better dropping down to like 15 pounds and doing a set of that on both sides and taking a little break, then going to maybe 20 pounds a set on both sides, maybe 2 sets, and then going to the 25 and trying to build that up. So all I can really say is a person would kind of have to experiment with doing holds and then doing more movement, repetitious movement. For overhead presses or bench presses or squats, of course, you're going to have range of motion, but with a side leverage lift, I think I would do holds more than I'd try to do movement, because it'll be safer for your back, particularly because you got so much leverage here. And you can try doing like a squat or a deadlift with the handles fixed out a little bit, but it might be something that for some people would be definitely contraindicated, and I wouldn't want anybody to get hurt with it. Of course, with any tool or apparatus, it's up to them what they're doing. So Some things I'm not going to suggest. There's all kinds of wild things you can do with this bar, and ideas and things a person can come up with. And I've got my own ideas in some of that stuff. So anyway, this is a demo using the first prototype of the crusher and the second prototype of the crusher. And as soon as I have myself made a bar, like I sent to Dan John, which I promised I'd send him a while back, and he graciously said he'd take a look at it and try it out and give me his thoughts on it, which I really appreciate. Very kind of him. Then I can begin to develop more of maybe a system or program centered around this bar. But I just wanted to get it out there. People can make their own bar. I'm going to make some videos and show exactly how I made the bar that I might sell for a low cost, or I might put a bunch. I think I'm going to put a bunch of stuff into a video series where I teach people actually how to train in disorderly settings using all types of implements, because that seems to be my my forte. So that's something that as I get that up and running, I'll let you know. And I figured in that whole series I will also show people how to make equipment like this. And if a manufacturer, you know, wanted to help me out, maybe produce these and sell them for me, and give me a royalty fee off it or something, which I know they don't need to now because there's I can't get a patent on this because it's part of public domain. This is what would be considered prior art now because I've exposed it to the public without getting a patent first. But that whole process is so extremely frustrating and difficult. It takes a lot of money to do it. Something like this, you're probably looking at $20,000–$30,000 at least. You got to hire patent attorneys and all this stuff, and then it still is no guarantee. So anyway, this is Walter, and this is just a little bit demo of some of the things you can do with the crusher. So I hope you enjoyed it.